Hello, good morning, and welcome to Ask the Expert, a daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. Now, ask any questions today in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. Now, my name is Shoaib Aslam, and this is the National Payroll Week. So we're going to be discussing a bit about that at the first half of this session. Now, during the live session, we'll also be running a poll, so please do engage as much as possible, try and participate, and I'll reveal the answers at the end of this session. So to give you a bit more background of who I am, what I do, Shoaib Aslam, as I mentioned, I'm a qualified chartered accountant. I've run a number of businesses that range from e-commerce to consultancy businesses to finance. So all sorts of businesses that I've got myself into over the last 12 to 15 years. And I'll be discussing with you today how we can make our systems, processes a lot more efficient, and I'll sort of my first experience in terms of the first payroll, first employee that I've ever had, and the downfalls, the the advantages. So obviously it is payroll week. So when I certainly started off my business almost about 12, 15 years ago, one of the things that I encountered initially was the workload. I mean, initially you don't have too much workload, primarily because you're a one-man show. It's difficult, first of all, to get business, so you're wearing numerous hats. And then suddenly you get busy because you're having to multitask so many things. And you think, actually, now I can just about take an employee, and that's exactly what happened with me. I took on my first employee, and again, I was quite budget conscious, so I had to be very careful with the budget. Again, with the recruitment side, and I think for me, one of the most important things was to find the right candidate who can cover some of the tasks that I do. Now that's very difficult because you're looking for a candidate that is good at their work, but they're a cheap resource essentially. And so I think I started off with my first candidate who was an apprentice. Again, back then there was the government initiatives. Some of them are still around. Now we've got the Kickstarter program as a further encouragement post COVID-19. Now, what that means is the government helps you, and I think back then I received, somewhat £1,500 because I employed an apprentice. You train them up, and again, there is some structured training. Essentially, they'll have to do some sort of NBQ examinations. But the end result is brilliant. You've helped someone out, who's perhaps not gone to university, or they have, and they're looking to really further their experience and qualifications. Now, overall, the experience was brilliant. It meant I could have someone on apprenticeship salary, and they would essentially help my business. The issue was, as I grew my business, I realized, well, I need another candidate and another candidate. And today we've got to a stage in my, for instance, accountancy practice. We've got a couple of dozen people who work for us. And we're growing really, really fast. We're taking a couple of candidates every month. We've done really well for ourselves. Issue is, how can we reduce that payroll cost and automate our processes, and have that efficiency? And that's where we looked into our IT infrastructure. We identified certain gaps, and we realized actually a lot of the repetitive or dogmatic duties were being carried out by staff members, which could be automated. And that's brilliant because, first of all, that's motivational for your staff members, because they're not having to do data entry. Or if you're in the e-commerce business, for instance, we've helped out a few clients where we've helped them automate initially they were e-commerce with a combination of having to raise invoices, sales invoices in the background and in their CRM. Again, we've automated that such that the client can trigger those automatically depending on certain fields and dynamic fields that we've set. And that's really, really important, obviously. Whilst we look at our staff members, and there are certain things that are irreplaceable, obviously, some of the stuff that they do, but moreover, there are certain qualities which for automated processes through RPA, right? Having used robots, it can make your customer experience better, improve your results from accuracy. I mean, there are, to begin with, there are tools out there to automate your data entry, right, through OCR. But more importantly, there might be tools where you might want to automate contracts or workflows. So for instance, without having to type out an email, if that workflow can be automated, that's brilliant. Now, if you take that on a marketing level, again, that's really important. If you're running an e-commerce business or a brick and mortar business, it doesn't really matter, because as long as you've got a solid IT infrastructure behind that, the whole process can work quite efficiently. Again, you might want to look at implementing certain booking applications that can automatically help you book meetings, whether that's through your standard email applications or bespoke applications. And again, you can have various questionnaires which can further help you ensure, if you are having that meeting, you suss out the right clients, saving you a lot of time. That can not just help you from your existing support tickets, but again, it can help you from a sales perspective as well. We've obviously got loads of questions coming up as well. So, during this session, feel free to ask anything about, business, how to grow your business, whether you're thinking of starting your next, Facebook idea, a business app, whatever it is, let's discuss that today. I'm more than happy to discuss, the back end software integrations, the processes, whether even it's a valid business idea, or if you want to just talk about, taking on your first employee. It is payroll week. So we've got questions coming up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well. Remember, feel free to, ask anything about businesses. I'm going to take my first question, and that's from Katie from Instagram. It's a direct message. Hello, how important do you think automating processes within a business is, and how would you go about doing that? That's a very, very good question, Katie. Automating processes, in my opinion, is a compulsory in business. And that is, look, if you're paying about £50,000 to an employee, and if you can automate, say, 50% of that, you've saved £15,000 or £25,000, right? Respectively. So how much would it cost you to automate that process initially? If it takes you a couple of £1,000s to automate that process, well, that's brilliant. What knock-on effect will that have on your clientele? Well, first of all, like I mentioned earlier, it's accurate results. Second of all, the accuracy also means better retention rates with your customers. Thirdly, it's motivational. Staff members no longer need to do that. There's a lot of other benefits, and we can go on and on. But the end result is, if you do automate your processes, you'll bring about a lot of efficiency. And remember, it's a one-off investment. There is a bit of maintenance involved every now and then, but once you have that initial investment, it can go on for the next 5 years. So that initial investment might be 5,000, 2,000, but if that goes on for the next 5 years, that's fantastic. The cost of the 50% saving of an employee is just year one. If you multiply that by 5 years, that's a lot of money. So I think you just need to look at which elements do I need to automate? And it's really, really important we focus on the elements that are dogmatic, that are very routine. Certainly applied that in our business. We've certainly helped our clients to automate their processes, whether it's through robots, whether it's through integrations. But at the end of the day, you as a business owner, Katie, you'll know which processes take the most amount of time and which are the most repetitive. And that's something you need to look at. Once you've sussed them out, then you need to start brainstorming them on a piece of paper and saying, okay, we're spending about 20 hours a week on this particular process. What's the value add? We've got more questions coming up. We've got a question on Twitter from Saskia. Morning, Shoaib. I'm in a full-time position at the moment. I have a business idea and I have saved a fair bit of cash so I could start my business with personal funding. Fantastic. I'm just nervous to know when to take the plunge. Do you have any advice with that? Another great question. I've launched a number of businesses myself. The way to really identify whether you want to launch that business, in my opinion, is to map it out on a piece of paper. Be very, very critical. Look at where you want to be in 2 to 5 years' time. Do you want to be a thousandaire? Do you want to be a millionaire? Do you want to be a billionaire? Do you want to be a billionaire and that business, even if it kicks off and it's only going to make you thousands or a few millions, then is that something you're going to be happy with? Also, do you have a passion for that business? Do you know that business well? So in terms of you've saved a bit of cash. Again, is it high risk, high return? How much cash are we talking about? Is it a lot of money that you're investing in? And the likelihood of it being successful, is that quite low? If it is, is that the right business idea? It may be, but that's something you need to suss out. Again, don't be nervous. I mean, business is actually quite fun. It's daunting as ever as well. But one of the things that if you mentioned you've been in a full-time position. I was working 15 years ago, and I certainly wanted to do something. I certainly did, and it's been successful. Now, even if it's not, at least you can say, I tried, and you've got no regrets. Also, you've got to understand, which type of personality you are, because in business, not only do you need to put in the hard work, but you also need to be very smart sometimes. You need to be able to wear several hats. So, if you feel you've got those skills of an entrepreneur and you're willing to put in the hard work, fantastic. That's brilliant. There are people who've made it really, really big. They've not been hardworking. They've not been smart, perhaps, and that's fine. But going into business, you need to be fully prepared and say, I need to go through all that. And you may not need to, but at least that's going to make your journey a lot easier. We've got more questions coming up. We've got a question from Julia from Facebook. Did you have all the information available to you when you hired your first employee? What documents or records were you required for when you first took on your staff? Well, look, Julia, initially when I started off my business, I had no clue, what the regulations and compliances are in connection with taking on your first employee. It's really, really important as a business owner to wear those several hats from a legality perspective, from an accountancy perspective, to ensure you're covered. Now, I had no idea. I didn't have all the information. Unfortunately, I was very young when I started my business. But one of the things that I realized was actually there are sources out there. There are great companies out there to help you. And we're not talking about paying a solicitor £150 an hour. There are online websites out there where you can go and research the relevant information about taking on your first employee. Again, there are accountancy firms out there as well, and there's a lot of material on Google. I would just be very comfortable with that, and and then it's fine. Ensure obviously they're given a proper contract, and they're also covered in terms of the legality aspect of the employment laws. There are specific legal helplines, for instance, something that we certainly offer, where you can call solicitors and barristers anytime, 24/7, and they'd be able to give you advice on that. These helplines are not expensive, but it really helps you going towards the right direction from day one. We've got more questions as we go along. We've got a question on Twitter, and that's from Ray. Ray's mentioned, "Hi there, Shoaib. What do you look for in a business partner? What must the individual possess, such as mindset, skill set, in order for you to go into business with them?" I've done a number of businesses in the past. For me, Ray, the most one of I mean, if I had to look at the hierarchy of what I look for in a business partner personally, I think the number one thing is trust. You need someone where you can almost blindfoldedly trust them. You've got to be able to trust them, because that element will help you not have any issues. I remember one of my clients in Chiswick in West London. There were two brothers. They came over about 10 years ago, and when they came over to my offices, at the time I was doing my accountancy practice from my house. Now obviously we've got this gigantic office, and we're doing we're a lot bigger. But it was when they came over, two brothers coming over, they were so happy, and they were like, "We're going to start this particular business together." And the youngest one said, "Yep, he's my elder brother. He's going to be the MD, and that's fantastic, and this and that." But what happened after about a couple of months was they came over and they said, "Shoaib," and they came independently, which was quite strange, because they got along all their life, and they said, "Look, we don't want to work together. He doesn't do his part of the job, so I work, and as soon as the shop opens, I close the shop." It was a telecoms shop, but now they just don't. We don't get along. And can you kind of value the business so we can split this? Now, the reality, what I'm trying to tell you is, it's so important that you lay all the terms down when you go into partnership. You need to be able to say, what will you do? What will I do? Okay, what will happen? How much money will you put in? So all of these aspects are so important when selecting the right business partner. It's also important to know what will they bring to the table from a knowledge perspective, right? Because this is something that can go south after a year, to say, "Look, I brought this to the table, you didn't." So once you've set a percentage and you've said, "Okay, you're going to get 50% or 40% and I'll get 60," well, write that down, document that. And that's really important, because people forget, and the best thing is not to have those disputes. We've got more questions coming. We've got a question here from Paul from Instagram. How many employees do you think is the minimum before you decide a business is to automate your payroll? Well, when you say before you decide a business is to automate your payroll, the question is, what do you mean? Do you mean automation of running a payroll, or the procedures that the employees perform? Now, if it is automating the payroll, well, to be honest with you, I think if it's about automating the payroll itself, I think you should do that from day one. It's not a huge cost. In fact, even if you've got the first employee, automate that as much as possible. There are banks, there are back systems out there where you can completely automate that whole process. And that's important, because the last thing you want to do is, for instance, go into a third-party application and submit your payroll, get the journals, go back into your accounting solution and post that journal, and that's not needed. Again, that's not real-time data. So I would automate my payroll from day one. and ensure the right solution is selected. We've got more questions. Interesting day today. So we've got a question from Hamish from Twitter. It's a direct message. Hi Shoaib, what's your advice if you have a business idea ready to go all, but lacking the knowledge to do so? Hamish, very, very good question. Sometimes you want to do it, you've got the passion, you've got the money, it's the right time, but you're lacking the knowledge. Well, if you're lacking the knowledge, that's fine. I mean, I've done businesses which are, completely different to accountancy or e-commerce or anything of that nature. I've not had the knowledge. I've had to go and seek the knowledge. It's taken me 6 months to go and seek knowledge. And that's important because if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. And in order to do it well, I need to be able to talk about it competently. So look, for me, I think the most important thing in terms of the business idea is having the passion. If you don't have the knowledge, find a business partner. Go and find someone who understands that business industry. You can even go and pay someone who's an entrepreneur who's done that business in that industry, and or you can speak to a lot of accountants or other third-party business advisors as well, and they'd be able to give you the right business advisory about that industry. Or there are a number of books if you want to talk about, let's say you want to go into, one of the things that I was thinking about was artificial intelligence, right? So I had no idea. I mean, I'm the sort of guy, I couldn't connect a printer to my laptop about over 10 years ago. I've programmed bots now for artificial intelligence and RPA. The interesting thing here is, do you want to learn that? Do you have a passion for that? And if you do, you'll do really, really well. If you've got no passion and you don't got no knowledge, then you're taking a backseat with your business partner. Is that a healthy relationship? It may be, and actually, you know what? You might need different specialisms for the business that you're launching. So you might need someone who's amazing at, I don't know, let's say it's a social media agency and you've got no knowledge about that, but you're really good at the business and compliance element, and that's fine. So you can, delegate and segment those duties. So I think that's really, really important to be able to have the relevant knowledge. But if you don't find the relevant business partners, go online. There is a lot of things that you can do. Sometimes you miss the opportunity, the time frame for that business. For instance, we're in COVID. We've just, debatedly, we're in COVID-19. We're going through a second phase, for instance, perhaps. What opportunities are there? I've had a lot of clients, probably more than, 50 clients, COVID related, and they're saying we're either selling hand sanitizers, masks. They've got no idea, about that industry before, but they're making a lot of money. So they may not have the knowledge, but they've got the passion to go and learn, or they've got the relevant business partners, and that's what matters. We've got about, less than 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and cover some of the other questions we've got here. We've got Pascal from Facebook Messenger. Good morning. I know that you've mentioned bots or robots. Do you have any bots in any of your businesses, and how do they work? Yes, I do. I certainly do. For instance, in our accountancy practice, filing a confirmation statement, it happens smoothly, well. It's efficient, it's timely, it's accurate. It's been more accurate than if we were to do it ourselves, primarily because it's based on existing data. If there's no changes required, that's absolutely fine. Also, we've done that with a number of other processes, but where human intervention is required to ensure, we look at all the reliefs and allowances available to our clients, we're going to do that. So we've been very picky in terms of what we will automate. I've also applied that in a number of other businesses as well. Jim from Instagram. Hello, Shoaib. Do you have any experience of selling a business? Our small business operates in agriculture and tree surgery. interesting business model. But we have an offer from a buyer, and we're wondering what we think, what we think we should do, but considering in the situation. Again, brilliant question, Jim. What you need to identify: do you want to be looking at your business from, if you're thinking of selling it? Well, obviously, we need to look at and sit down. What is the future worth of this business? Not just during COVID. Obviously, it may be impacted by COVID, but obviously we're trying to get as much out of this business as we can. So one of the things that we would look at is the various different business models of valuation. There's a PE model, there's an asset-based, there's a number of, I can go on and on, but what we would do is assess what works based on your business model. Would also look at the qualitative and quantitative factors of the business and come up with a figure. Would also help you negotiate in that conversation with the buyer as well. It may be where we, if you want us to do a business health check, we can even say, actually, this is what it's worth, but I don't think you should sell it. So if you wanted that kind of advisory, that's something I think, it is something I would recommend as well. We've got a question here on Facebook Messenger. Gosh, we're getting questions all over social media platforms today, so that's good to see. We've got a question from Farah on Facebook Messenger. Do you have any top tips for standing out from competition in business aside from really low prices? So do you have any top tips from standing out from competitors from a business side, other than keeping your costs low? Okay. Yes, absolutely. By the way, competition isn't based on keeping your costs low. That's not competition. If you want to compete against your competitors, don't decrease your price. That's not the only solution, right? It may be a solution, but it's not the only solution. So what you need to understand is, can I market well? Can I bring that product? Can I entice that product from a better branding? It's the same product, but can I brand it better? Can I focus on better clientele? So right now, for instance, I'm using, Google AdWords or Facebook remarketing or a number of other business venues. And my target audience are people based in, outside London. But if I change my target audience to London, actually, I may debatably be able to get, clients wanting to convert a lot quicker. So if my competitors are focusing in that particular area, I may want to try something different. And there's a number of other tools that you can do. I've talked about this partially in my book as well on Amazon, and it's called what most accountancy practices, successful ones, they won't tell you. So check that out. Have a look on Amazon, and you'll find some results. We've got the results coming in. So the poll results are in. We asked you, have you hired your first employee? 25% said yes. 50% said no, it's only me. And 25% voted no, but I'm thinking about it. Wow, interesting. So almost half of them said no, it's only me. And that's fine, but do have a consideration about the Kickstarter program and the advantages surrounding that. Right, so if you've got any questions, then please do get in touch with QuickBooks support team or myself on 0208 582 0076. You can check out our website on www.pearlaccountants.com. Coming up next on the Ask the Expert tomorrow, that's Joanna Jensen. She's the founder and executive chairman of UK's #1 baby and children's toiletry brand, Child's Farm. In July this year, she's also launched an adult brand, Farmology, following the huge demand from women and parents. Tune in tomorrow and get advice on how to diversify your product offerings. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. I've really enjoyed answering your questions this morning. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you.